Hi, it's Danny Beck, and we're looking at the wisdom of Jesus in the parables in the Gospel of Jesus. And I promised a wrap up of the parables in general, and I come up with four and a half, five. I could go on and on really, but I found five of good parables that kind of lead one into the other, which means once you kind of solve one part of the parable, that parable then takes you, it leads you into solving the next one. When I say solving, and I'm talking about riddles, but a lot of people will tell you, or some people at least have told me, all the parables are just simple little stories told to simple people. That's all it is. But Jesus seems to imply a whole lot more than that, and the Bible also speaks where Paul mentions the wisdom of God is going to challenge the wisdom of man, and the wisdom of God is going to turn upside down the wisdom of man. And so this sounds like an absolute challenge of wit and wisdom, And so I hope to show that by looking at these parables, that particular statement about the wisdom of God and the wisdom of man, and God promising to turn our wisdom upside down. I hope to prove that he really has done that and really done a good job of it. Okay. The first parable that I wanted to bring to mind, and we've done it a little bit before, but I really want to touch on the why and how I came to begin to understand where the parable is going. And it's just the parable of the workers in the vineyard. It's called that, I think. But it's the household who had a vineyard, and the grapes were ripe. It was ready to do the harvesting. And he went out early in the morning, and he hired laborers to work in his vineyard. And when you think about a laborer, sometimes you think about just doing the hands-on work. But believe me, I think that these laborers had a little bit more responsibility than plucking grapes off the vine. Be that as it may, he agreed with these workers for a good day's wage, but back then it was a penny, and he sent them into the vineyard. And Jesus says, after he speaks about sending them into the vineyard, he says, and he went out. He went out about the third hour, and saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And he approached them. Go you also into the vineyard, and whatever is right I will give you. And they went their way. So he was hiring people. And he hires people 3, 4, 5 times throughout the day. He's going out, he's going out, he's going out. And towards the end of the day, there's only an hour left to work, and he's out there again. And it's like he's looking for somebody, because he keeps going out. He's in particular trying to seek out. And he comes to this one group, and he says to them, why have you been here idle all day? Why haven't you been working? And they answered to him, because no one hired us. Now that's a little clue to understanding the parable. But I'm going to give you another clue that I haven't mentioned yet, also about understanding this parable. But he says, go ye into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall you receive. And so they didn't even know what they were going to get paid. They were just wanted a job bad, and it didn't matter what they were getting paid. And when the hour was up, when the evening came, he arranges to have them paid, and he tells his accountant there. He says, bring those who were hired last and pay them right away. And so he does that. Now, on a side note, we'll get to that. When they were hired at the 11th hour, they received every man a penny, the same as the person hired way early in the morning. But when the first came, later when the ones who were hired early in the morning came, they thought that perhaps maybe he would change his mind and pay them more, since he paid these guys that only worked an hour the same wage. but they started to grumble against him, murmured against the good man of the house, saying, You made these people that worked an hour equal to us. This doesn't seem fair. And he says, we bore the heat of the day. And he answered one of them, saying, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? Take what is thine and go your way. I will give unto this last even as unto thee. Isn't it lawful for me to do what I want with my own? And then he says, Is your eye evil? Are you seeing evil in me because I am good to these other people? He says, Isn't that bizarre? You see me as evil, but I'm doing a good thing. So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. For many are called, but few are chosen. Now that's another riddle of Jesus is thrown in, which he repeats in several different places. First will be last, and the last will be first. But it was a matter of him treating both of these people equally. And so the people who felt like that they'd worked all day long being treated equal to the people who had just been hired an hour. Well, yes, the people hired an hour, man, they were all excited. They got a whole bunch of money for a little bit of effort. And the person just worked all day long, they actually feel like they came in last, having invested more of their energy. But let me promise you, there's more to this story than that, because the wisdom of God is so much more superior than man that I think that they, by and large, it's been missed and hidden away and locked away in these parables for about 2,000 years. And it's exciting to be a part of the new understanding of the parables. But in order to get the new understanding, you have to let the parables and let Jesus' other teachings help you unlock what the parable is really about. And the one place that I realized was that it happened to be in the miracle of the healing of the servant of the centurion. And it's mentioned in Matthew chapter 8, starting verse 5, but the culminates or kind of climax around part of verse 8 and verse 9 of Matthew. And here it says, the centurion says, Jesus said, I'm going to come to your house and heal your servant. He says, I'm not worthy for you to come to my home. But he says, I'm a man of authority and I've got people working under me. When I want something done, I get it done, but I don't personally, physically go and do it. I just assign it to this person or that person. I get it done that way. And when you think about it, that's sort of the way God does a lot of stuff. He assigns it to his prophets or he assigns it to human beings to get it done. He personally doesn't come down and do a transformation and do spirit become flesh and do everything, all in every instance. He sends somebody else to do it, right? So, the parable of the centurion's servant applies to this parable when you think about it, because it talks in the very beginning, Jesus is pointing out, and he does this on purpose to make the parable a mystery, to make it a tantalizing thing to explore and to solve. And he challenges us also. He says, I speak in parables so that hearing you won't hear, and seeing you won't see. If the parable doesn't make you kind of not see something and have an inclination not to see and not to hear, then you probably are hearing the parable the way Jesus intended, because he said you're going to get it wrong, perhaps. And a lot of people do. At least, let's go, okay, I might get us sidetracked here because I want to say, really, the centurion's son, the centurion's servant, applies in this parable because when he went out in the morning to hire those workers to work for him, you see, he had palsy, just like the centurion's servant did. And so he wasn't moving around that good at all. He would go on, he struggled to go from one person to another. But he hired these workers to work in his vineyard to be his legs and his hands and his mouth. He hired them to go out and bring in more workers for the vineyard. So they were out picking grapes some of the time, but the rest of the time, these ones who were hired early were going out and bringing more recruits to work in the vineyard. It was all about getting as many people as possible to work in the vineyard. Anybody that wanted to work, let's give them a job. Let's give them a job. Let's give them a job. Because he knew something about grapes and he knew something about people. This rich man, this man who owned this vineyard, a certain man, it just says. At any rate, so they went out to do the hiring, and they passed up these guys early in the morning. These guys were in the marketplace all day long. So the workers that the householder had hired early in the morning passed up these workers, and then after the third hour. They passed them up after the midday. They passed them up later that afternoon. They passed them up in the last hour. He personally is going to these people now, and he's saying, why are you out here all day long? Because no man hired us. That's when the light goes on. That's when the decision is made. You come to work in my vineyard, I'll pay you what's fair. So what does he do? He's this perfect employer. He's always paying generously for a day's work. And these guys that he hired in the morning to be his feet and his legs, they're very selective, very picky. And they don't hire these guys. There's something different about them. We don't know yet, but we can ponder that. And when we do, we'll learn something. But chances are these guys were not friends of the people that were doing the hiring. They were probably outsiders of some kind, because who are you going to go to with a good deal for work? Is the people that you can trust, people that you know, people are your friends. And you're going to say, hey, come on, work in this vineyard for this guy. He's paying really generous wage. And, I know you'll do a good job for him, but you're selective. First friends or family, and then the neighbor guy down the street, and the last one you're going to hire is some foreigner, somebody that looks totally, completely different than what you might expect, because strangers are scary to you. Strangers are what? They're strange, and they're not. They're the unknown factor, and we like to know everything we can know. That's where our safety and comfort zone is. Jesus knows all about that, and his parable works right along with our inclination to pass up those strangers. But here it is, the end of the day, and he's hired those guys, and he's given them instruction, hire anybody that wants to work, and they passed up the strangers all day long. So what does he do? He pays them right in front of their nose the same amount that they're getting for a day's work. Oh, they couldn't be floored. Oh, listen to them whine. Oh, they got paid the same. Well, we bore the heat of the day. And he's like, oh, come on. You don't think I know what's going on? If they bore the heat of the day by themselves, it was their own choice. Because those guys wanted to work all day long, you passed them up. Maybe to speculate that they're strangers, if they're outsiders, if they're foreigners. But what if they were actually from the same foreign tribe that this landowner was from, and he knew where they were? He knew about them. They were dressed a certain attire, told who and where they'd come from, and he had a plan for them to work in his vineyard. What would that plan be? I guess on my previous job, I was marketing agent for the agency I worked for. And marketing is a hard thing. Finding good customers is a hard thing. And I can tell you what, that after the harvest of these grapes, those guys earned their keep. The guys that worked 1 hour, they earned it all the way home, over and over, in every place that they stopped in, every village that they stopped in along the way home. Hour after hour, and talk about how wonderful it was. They worked an hour, and they got paid a day's wage. And how afterward there was a party. There was always after a harvest party, and it was just a wonderful. The guy was great to work for, and that had to be the most expensive wine you can find anywhere, because everybody that harvested that was getting a penny an hour for their work. As far as those guys were concerned, that's what everybody got. They were paid first, and you get the chance to see who else got paid, what they got paid, or anything. The added value to it was in the fact that they were only working 1 hour and were paid equal to the ones that worked all day. And they saw that as added value to the wine. And you know what? When you get paid that good wage for harvesting that wine, let me tell you, the more workers in the vineyard, the better your pay, the sweeter the wine. And that's marketing 101. Marketing. And marketing doesn't come cheap. Marketing does not come cheap. And finding good customers and finding heartfelt, satisfied participants in the harvest is all part of good marketing. And that's the genius and wisdom of God, paying equally to the one that worked all day long and the one that worked 1 hour. Because he knew that the one that worked 1 hour was actually going to work several hours and several days all the way home. And he actually underpaid those guys. Isn't that funny? He underpaid them. Okay. That is the wisdom and wit of God and Jesus Christ in the parables. And I just started. This parable takes us to another parable. And that's the parable of the unjust. They call it the unjust steward, or some say it's the clever steward, because he's involved with having the rich man's goods being wasted. There's a report that the rich man's goods being wasted, and that would fall upon the responsibility of the steward, who was keeping the books and managing all that part of the rich man's things. And where is that located? The rich man's the unjust steward. Unjust steward. I have it right here. The shrewd manager is called, and that's in Luke 16, 1 through 13. And I wanted to try to get offer scripture because I've been ignoring that for a while, but you can Google any scripture that you want. I should say I memorized the words of Jesus in my lifetime, and early on in my studies of His Word. I wanted to understand and know what I didn't know, what I did know, and I studied the words of Jesus with that intent. And I should have introduced my wife, Mary. She's holding the camera for us. Say hi, honey.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, he studied. We had a big board, 8x4 board with all of Jesus's words in our dining area, and
that was in our kitchen for almost a year and a half or more, I think.
Yeah.
But it was long enough to where it could have even been a couple of years. I can't remember exactly, but it stood there and used the board with all of Jesus' words to kind of clarify what I knew and what I didn't know. We did it together, Mary and I. But I would take this time at work, where I worked at a lumber mill. I would take this time to contemplate and pray about, and really spend a day per each verse. If it took a day or a week, sometimes if it was a parable. And look for, once I got started on this, it began to unfold. I kind of had an intuition of what I was looking for. I knew it when I found it, Just like this parable we just went through. You know that it makes sense once you explore it and give it meat and bones. It's not so obscure. It doesn't seem unfair. It seems very wise. You know when it's wise, and so you don't settle for anything less than that. Jesus said, "A wiser than Solomon is here," and Solomon was very witty and wise. Okay, so I hadn't been given scripture all along, but if I stated, you could just about bet this word for word from King James version, of the Bible. But Dory Reams is Catholic, and it's very much very very close to King James when it comes to these parables at least. And I couldn't tell you what the differences are. I haven't studied that piece of it, but it seems to me as far as getting the gospel out. They're minimal. So the workers of the vineyard, and now we're looking at the unjust, the unfair steward. And it's an interesting way that they start out some of these stories. It says, for the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man, his householder. I'm sorry, wait a minute. I didn't make the switch here. I'm talking about Luke over here in 16, I believe. No, 20, Luke 20. Actually, I could have had all these marked. Boy, I might have to start over, Mary. I don't want to keep my people waiting 1 second. But Luke 20, and I know it off my head anyway, so I should be able to say that that the scripture says that there was a rich man who had a steward, and the same was reported unto him that he had wasted his goods. And the way that that's written in the King James is like the same was reported unto him. Who talks like that? It's almost like the most oddest kind of thee and thou, and thine and thou kind of language, where it's almost unnecessary. The same was reported unto him that he had wasted his goods. And when you read it in the Greek, I've got a nice little Greek translation. The Greek is kind of a forward, backward kind of a. It's sort of like maybe even talking sign language, big mountain I go to, and that means I'm going to the mountain. I mean, it's just like forward, backwards. And so you have a little difficulty when you're talking about this rich man had a servant and the same, and he was reported that the rich man's money has been wasted, goods has been wasted. That's the bottom line. But I'm here to tell you that the parable we just read ties into this parable, because it was the same guy that the rich man told, pay them, starting with the one hired last, pay them a penny. And then do that in front of those other guys who'd worked all day long. This was the same employee, the unjust steward. And what was going on in this parable was that the unjust steward was reporting to this rich man, you know what? You're wasteful with your money. And the rich man saying, what is this that I hear of you? And people, as she says, the scripture says that the rich man responds after the accusation that the rich man's money is being wasted.